Good evening, everyone. Tonight is the Town Council regular meeting, Wednesday, September 15th, 2021 at 7 p.m. via go-to meeting. At this point, we will ask Mr. Donovan to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
indivisible, with liberty.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. All right, we'll move on to item number 2. Do we have any visitors on the call that would like to be recognized at this time?
My name's Kelly Edwards. I'm the prevention coordinator for the town.
Thank you. Hi, Kelly. Any other visitors?
Shelby Auletta, interested party.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. And then we'll move on to number 3, which is the approval of the minutes for the September 1st, 2021 meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. Item number 4 on the agenda would be appointments and reappointments, which we have none this evening, so we will move right on to item number 5. Authorizing the resolution to turn over the Morgan School to the Board of Ed. Long time coming. So we will look for a motion to approve a resolution. Whereas on July 21st, 2021, the Town Council accepted the Morgan Building Project as completed and disbanded the Morgan Building Committee. And whereas in accordance with the Connecticut General Statutes 10-20, at such time that building project is fully complete, control of the Morgan School shall be given to the Board of Education. And whereas the Clinton Board of Education acted on August 16th, 2021 to formally accept the Morgan School from the town to be used for the school purposes and assume control over all buildings, lands, apparatus, and other property located at the Morgan School in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 10-2020. And now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council of the Town of Clinton hereby formally conveys to the Clinton Board of Education the Morgan School to be used for school purposes and assume control over all buildings, lands, apparatus, and other property located at the Morgan School in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 10-220. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Actually, I'd just like to make a comment to thank everybody who was involved in this project. Obviously, it's a long time coming, and thank you to all the hard work that they put in getting this project completed and handed over to the Board of Ed. At this point, then we'll take a vote. Mary, you want to just do a roll call?
Dennis,
Aye.
Tim,
Yes.
Carol,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
And is Mark on the call?
I am,
Okay, great.
and I vote to approve as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All right, now we'll move on to item number 6, which is the council input on planning and zoning's regulation amendment regarding recreational and medical marijuana. On Monday,
Excuse me,
Wednesday-
Chris.
Yes.
Sorry, this is Erin Gaudette. I'm on my phone at another meeting, so I couldn't unmute it fast enough to let you know that I'm here as a guest.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So when the agenda went out on Monday, there was a resolution that went out with our agenda addressing a council opinion on this topic. Obviously, on the meeting on Monday night when they had the public hearing, not only was the public hearing held, but they also voted, and denied the application that was presented, that regulation that was presented to them, which was to allow dispensaries in the town of Clinton. So at this point, I think that the conversation maybe should turn to the authority that the town council would have statutorily to have a discussion about doing a ordinance as it relates to this and moving forward with. And again, I'm bringing this forward because of sort of the comments that were brought forth at this public hearing. For those of you that weren't there, were overwhelmingly against anything coming to our town. And not only was it the public, chief of police was there, human services were there, and giving the background on the work that they've done within our town. But also when the vote happened with the council, with the Planning and Zoning Commission members, they were all the comments were again in opposition to this coming into town. So, at this point, there still is an open date of January where if we don't basically put forth something that may ban the dispensaries coming to the town of Clinton, that there's a possibility that it could still happen. I just want Carl to speak real quickly because I know he did have some conversations with the town attorney, just so he can give us a little bit of an overview on everything else as it relates to this. And then after that, what I feel is that we should be moving forward and having a further discussion about an ordinance that we would put into town. At our next meeting, we would draft an ordinance that everybody could put their eyes on. And at that point, if everybody's agreeable to that, we move towards a public hearing. So that is what I would like to see from this council, but I'll let Carl speak to some of the other items that he has.
So the statute, when it was passed by the General Assembly, gave municipalities the ability to, one, prohibit the establishment of a cannabis establishment, two, establish reasonable restrictions regarding hours and signage, or three, establish proximity limitations on such a business. So most towns have done this through their planning and zoning by way of regulation. However, the statute does allow municipality to either amend its zoning regulations or pass a local ordinance. So I think the majority of towns have done it through planning and zoning, but you do have some that have acted by way of passing an ordinance that would prohibit the establishment of a cannabis establishment as defined by statute. So the council has an option to pass an ordinance. As you know, it takes at least 2 meetings to do that. First, to have a first read of the ordinance, and then hold a public hearing before final adoption. In consultation with the town attorney, the town council could act and pass a resolution without planning and zoning. And I'm not sure what planning and zoning's next step is following Monday's public hearing and their decision to shoot down the regulation that would have allowed a cannabis establishment.
So basically, they're shooting down the regulation would allow it, but it would not prohibit it. So basically, the step forward here that we would like to discuss is putting an ordinance in place that would ban the establishment of those going forward. So that's what I want to open up to council members. Get your feeling on it. If we're in agreement and a consensus on this, then I would like to then have Carl work with our town attorney, putting together an ordinance that we can then, like he says, put our eyes on it, read it, and then at that point, if we're all agreeable, move it towards the public hearing and then adoption, if that all how it all plays out. So open it up to council members to let me know how your feeling is on this. Dennis.
I'm certainly in favor of passing an ordinance to ban the sales of cannabis in this town. Also, I'd like to see, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, you can fill me in. Also, I believe at the same time that we put in that ordinance, also prohibitions about where cannabis can be smoked within the town. For instance, like no public places, parks, beach, you name it, will encompass that all in this one ordinance.
Yes, it will.
Very good.
Yeah,
Anybody else?
I agree with Dennis. My one comment would be in regards to people who are sick. Now, I guess that would mean they were in a hospital, and then as long as there was some type of a hospital or doctor's recommendation towards this, I don't know if I would be comfortable telling someone that they couldn't have it if it meant making their life a little bit easier to live as a result of it. But other than that, I agree with Dennis that I don't want it in town.
And again, this ordinance then would relate to a dispensary in town. That's what it would relate to, them putting a bricks and mortar in our town.
That's fine. I would be against that.
Anyone else?
This is Mark, and I concur with Dennis. I would support a ordinance to prohibit an establishment that would sell cannabis in town.
Mark? Eric?
Chris, yeah, in light of the a lot of the testimony from Monday night, which was overwhelmingly opposed to this type of measure, I think it's being that we work in the interest of the citizens. I think we have to move forward with this. So I didn't see anyone come out except one gentleman who seemed to be in favor of it. So we are elected to reflect the will of the people, and I think that's what we should do.
Okay. Thank you, Eric.
Christine Gopin here. I just think benefit clarification.
Can't hear you.
For everyone, currently has already been legalized within the state of Connecticut and is allowed to be distributed.
Okay. Anybody else, Ted? You good? Okay. All right, then at this point, then I guess we'll just, with the consensus being that we'll look to establish that ordinance, we will move forward with an ordinance. We'll have Carl deal with the town attorney, present the draft to us at the next meeting, and then turn that over to a public hearing. And yeah, I appreciate everybody's input. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I noticed that we have a public hearing scheduled for October 20th with 3 other ordinances. Could this possibly be added to that?
We would hope so, yes.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Everybody good? Thank you all. We will now move on to item number 7, which is a one line item transfer. This is a bank fee transfer to increase bank fees by $10,427 and to decrease the insurance other than employment. So does anybody have any questions on transfer? There are none, then we'll look for a motion to approve the transfer.
I'll make that motion.
Second? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain, thank you. Move on now to item number 8, which is the finance director's report. Sue?
Hi, good evening, everybody. You have my reports, and it's the second month of fiscal 22 already. So it's for the month ending August 31st. The revenues are for the 2 months ending August 31st. It was a quiet month as far as transactions go. Revenues were $3.5 million. 3.2 of that were additional tax collections. Total tax revenues are now $666,000 higher than the prior year, with the current tax revenues just about the same as last year, as 54.6% compared to 54.4% in the prior year. The remaining revenues of $300,000 were basically due to a town aid road grant from the state, which we typically get of $133,000, and the remaining amounts were still a strong month for town clerk collections of $74,000. 62 of that was real estate conveyance fees, and also another strong, a very strong month for the building fees as well, $39,000. Other than that, nothing else really in the revenue area. Total expenses were $2.2 million, with half of that being the transfers for the Board of Ed expenses. $700,000 of the remaining amount is salary and benefit charges for the month. And then the remaining amount is just of $380,000 is just operational expenses, which I detailed more so in my report. The investment balances are $36 million as of the end of August, and included, as you are aware, the $1.9 million of the funds received in June under the American Rescue Plan Act. Contingency remains the same at 165 of what it was budgeted, 165,000 that is. And the fund balance calculation still remains the same as the prior month as well at 15.1. That's the report. As far as anything going on in our office, I've been working today with Carolyn at the Board of Ed to close up our reconciliation between the town and the Board of Ed. I believe we're completed with that. What that means is I think we'll be able to get the final numbers for June 30th off to the auditors. If not tomorrow, then it will be by Friday for sure. We've been working with them on and off anyway, so they've done a lot of their testing already. So hopefully everything will be put back in their hands at the end of this week. And then we'll be able to get back into more of our other routine matters going on in our office, which is everything else that goes on. I'll just leave it at that. Any questions?
Thanks, Sue. Anybody have questions?
Yeah, Sue, you mentioned 500,000 for salary-related charges. What exactly is this? And excuse my ignorance.
That's just the term, I just use that to encompass all the full-time, part-time, and seasonal workers. Just to differentiate that from the fringe benefits of the insurance charges and pension expenses. So 500 was the salary, 200 was the fringe benefits expenses.
Perfect, thank you. And then you mentioned e-finance. What's the time frame for your just beginning to implement this?
They were delayed in getting information to us, so we couldn't begin in June like we wanted to. And then we told them we would not be able to focus on it over the summer because of working on the year-end close on both of our sides. So I believe they now have given us decent training databases that Carolyn and I will both start working on after we get done with this close. So probably we will start working on it by the end of September, and then we'll see where we go from there. From what preliminarily we've seen of it, it's actually quite similar to what we have. So it shouldn't be that difficult to do, but we still have to do it.
All right, thank you, Sue.
All right.
Anyone else? All right, thanks, Sue.
You're welcome.
All right, we will now move on to item number 9. Council discussion on future projects. Does anyone have anything to bring up for discussion? Got to be something.
Everything I wanted to discuss, Carl is going to touch on in his report. So I'm cut off at the pass here.
I want to steal his thunder.
Yeah, so Carl, you are going to address the Pearson. I did see there's a little, there's an item that's going to talk about that, correct?
Yeah, I can talk about it during my report if you'd like.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else then at this point? All right, then we move on to number 10, Chairman's Report. I do not have anything to report this evening, so we will move on to number 11, which is the Town Manager's Report.
Okay, given now pent-up demand for my report. So as a follow-up to our workshop, I'm pulling together additional information on ARPA funding to respond to the input I received from the council after your last discussion. So we're drilling down on getting costs together for Wi-Fi and following up on other points that were raised. I gave you a brief overview of what was discussed at the CCM Legislative Committee. The Green Bank was there. It was raised once before with this group that legislation had passed with the Green Bank having the ability to help with the financing of sustainability and resiliency type projects, at least as it related to natural hazard mitigation plan. They're not in a position to roll out a product. It's not clear whether it's going to be grant, loan, combination of the two, or how it's going to work. So they're in the process of collecting feedback before a product is offered to municipalities in order to finance such a project. There was also discussion taking place on what the state should not be reimbursing as it relates to school projects. Apparently, the state does not provide funding to replace end-of-life HVAC units, and there's a desire that get picked up. There was also a discussion that hopefully the General Assembly will be voting sometime soon on the governor's ARPA plan, or how the state is going to spend its money. That has not taken place as of yet. Additional information, Pearson, as was pointed out by Eric. I do have a cost estimate from the town's consulting engineer to do a structural engineering review of the building. That came in at $12,000 even. So this would be reviewing the existing drawings of Pearson, looking at a conditions assessment on the structural components of the building, and then evaluating the feasibility of removing some of those elements as to whether or not you could have a floor plan in the building that's something other than kind of that honeycomb grid of classrooms. So if it's the council's desire, I'm going to need to prepare a transfer request to have $12,000 available to proceed with that project. The Historic Preservation Enhancement Grant that was acted on at the last meeting, I've been going back and forth with Peggy Adler on that one as we work to try and put together a grant application that's going to be acceptable under the standards of the program. So that's still in process. The regional housing plan is moving forward. As I noted, the last meeting, Clinton had some of the highest public participation in the survey instrument. They're moving forward with further data collection, and more is to come on that project going forward. Finally, the online permitting system, which was targeted for a replacement of the existing system in the building department, and then expanding with land use. That's moving forward. There'll be a kickoff meeting involving the employees for what our roadmap is going to be going forward. There's a division of labor in terms of setting the different pieces up so that the vendor, OpenGov, will be doing the work as it relates to the building department, taking its processes and workflows and digitizing them. The land use workflows will be mapped using Mike D'Amato from our consulting planner. He has experience with OpenGov in other municipalities, and it was thought that would allow for a more streamlined implementation with land use. So that's, hopefully we can get those off the ground and moving quickly. The vendor is confident that we'll have a good transition and be able to migrate all the existing data going forward. So they're confident that this will be a success. And it creates a launch pad, as I noted during our ARPA discussions, that we could then continue to expand what types of activities could be digitized to allow the public to have more of that 24-hour access working through a website and not having necessarily come into town hall to do their business. And I don't know whether I hit on everything for you or not, Carol, but.
Can I? Well, I did have one question about the Pearson plan that is going to be the structural engineering study. Are they going to approach the weight bearing capacity of the building? I mean, with the thought of perhaps putting the library in there? Is that part of their study?
That would have to be part of the analysis for what the building could not support. So it's really a function of how much of that building is structural and how much of it is not structural. And then taking into consideration different loads, you'd want to, you used a library as an example, you'd want to avoid what the University of Connecticut did, which was build a library and then forget about the book load. And it peels off the facade.
No, we don't want to do that.
So I think you're looking at what the building can do, and then that sort of helps feed the further conversation of what the council would do going forward.
Well, I'd really be able to work from an informed viewpoint after that study, because that is a hot topic, whether to bring the library back downtown or not.
Carl,
I think that was our discussion.
Chris, are we looking for?
Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, are you looking for a motion to approve of the study, the cost of the study of $12,000 for a structural engineer?
I'm going to need council approval on a transfer. So I prepare a transfer for you for your next meeting for the council to act on. It's just really whether you wanted to move forward. I told you I would get you a price and head back and forth with our consultant. So now it's really a matter of if it's the council's will, then I'll put together a transfer and then set that up for you for October 6th.
I, for one, would endorse spending that money because it just allows us more information. Again, what you touched on too, Carol, the more we know, the better informed decision we can make going forward. So yes, I would certainly, individually, I would encourage it.
Right. And I think that's what we've discussed. Yeah. I mean, I think that's what we've discussed it. And when we've discussed the future projects report is that Pearson is going to be a hot topic, but getting the right information that we need in regards to the building and what we can and can't do with it is going to lead us down the path of what really we can do with the building. So this is an important part and a first step of the project that we need answers on so that we know where it will take us. Because this technically, Carol will follow up with some obviously additional information, but sort of will lead us down the path of what we can and can't do with the building. So I think it's money well spent. So I think we should move forward with that as well. Any other questions for Carl?
Christine
Carl.
Goupil.
I'm sorry.
Christine
Go ahead.
Goupil. I'd just like to point out that I think it's a little preliminary to go forward with this process. Your land use boards have input on the future use of that site in terms of regulations, which they have not gone forward with. I think you need public input through that process to rezone the site, set regulations to determine the future use. And that is a very long public process. I just don't think it's prudent to spend $12,000 to move along on a tract until we know that the public process has been thorough. So that's my input on it.
Okay. Eric, you had something?
I did, Carl. I'm sure you would have included it in your report if you had something of note, but anything that we could, moving forward with the impending increase in fees for Mira up in Hartford, anything on the state level that could help us understand which way to head as we move into a budget season?
There's nothing as of yet for where their tip fee is going to go. I mean, I think they still have their business model to iron out. The intention of Mira was to wind down the Hartford facility, to take it offline as a burn plant and turn it into a transfer station to support shipping waste out of state. Deep has been in favor of increasing recycling. So we're waiting for them to pass some regulations that would support some of that additional recycling. The bigger bill that got out of the last session, as I noted before, was the bottle bill, which increased the deposit from 5 cents to 10 cents and then added a fee for the so-called nib bottle. So the little bottles are supposed to create a revenue stream back to municipalities to support recycling. Those dollars aren't going to get seen anytime soon. So I guess we'll wait and see what the actual critical mass is for that kind of money. The marketplace doesn't seem to exist for all materials to be recycled differently. So there's no state policy direction relative to undoing sole source recycling and putting it into different buckets so that glass stays separate from cardboard and you can peel out a commodity where there may be the market interest in taking on a type of recyclable where maybe it doesn't work when things are commingled. So it's right now, there's nothing new to report beyond what I've already reported out of the state.
All right. Anybody else? All right. So then I guess we'll just move on again with the Pearson study to get that done. Again, I think that's important that we do the study before we change any regulations as it relates to the building, because changing a regulation or a zoning requirement on a building that that use may not be eligible, that really just doesn't make too much sense, because we should find out what the building would be eligible to be used for before we start entertaining regulation changes. So I think that's a good first step with getting the structural integrity of the building to find out what we can do. So we'll move forward with that at the next meeting. And then at this point, then we'll move on to number 12, which is the Town Council Committee Liaison Reports. Do we have anybody to report? Tim?
Okay, EDC had a meeting last night. Briefly, they discussed the facade improvement grants. Evidently, Coffee Break, Granda Pizza, and Haircutters 2 have agreed to go ahead with some of the renditions that have been proposed by Diane. So right now, I think they're having a problem finding anybody to bid on doing the work. That's going to evidently be an issue going forward. So I don't know who is making the contacts, who is trying to schedule or contact contractors, but right now it appears that nobody has put a bid to do the work. And then they also did have some discussion about our ARPA spending plan that we will be discussing again on September 22nd. They briefly discussed some of their thoughts about it, but it pretty much balanced with what we have been talking about. So that's my report.
Thanks, Tim. Anybody else?
Yes,
Well-
go ahead, Dennis.
Yes.
All right, mine's real quick, Eric. Police Commission met 2 nights ago on Monday. Everything is going along smoothly. However, we did lose our executive assistant, Wendy McDermott, retired, a longtime worker, both at the police department and also at our Clinton Volunteer Fire Department. So she will be missed, and good luck to Wendy. Of another note, the recently purchased cameras for the officers on their lapels and in their automobiles seems to be working out quite well at this particular moment. Other than that, everything is going along quite well at the police department.
Thank you, Dennis. Eric?
Yes, inland wetlands, they received the application for the installation of a beaver deceiver device on 141 Liberty Street. Again, I think it's been mentioned in these meetings that we do have a beaver issue. And they approved the amendments to a fee ordinance in wetland fees, which will be part of a public hearing, our public hearing on October 20th. Planning and zoning, I think all the fireworks were Monday night, and I wouldn't even call it fireworks, but there was quite a debate, as you know, about retail cannabis regulations. And then I did hear from Kathy King in her report that there's been 48 blight use complaints this calendar year, 42 of which have been resolved. And Kathy did request that the Planning and Zoning Commission consider amending the outdoor seating regulations in light of HB 6610 accessory use. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Eric. Anybody else? Good. All right. On to 13. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So
Second
moved, yeah, okay. Second,
session. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed, abstained. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
See you
you.
next Wednesday.
Good night,
Okay,
Mr.
all right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.